Welcome to the Cloud Pod, where the forecast is always cloudy. We talk weekly about all things AWS, Google, and Azure. We are your hosts,
Justin,
Jonathan,
and Peter.
Episode 33, recorded on July 30th, 2019, announcing the new Cloud Pod Cuddle. Hey guys, how's it going this evening?
Been a long trek home. How about you, Justin?
Yeah, it was a bit of a commute this evening for me as well.
I have the exact opposite commute. Actually, just completely different area, and it was identical. Two huge wrecks somewhere. Couldn't get home.
You know, there's a lot of other wrecks that we should be talking about in the show tonight, so let's maybe get to it. So first of all, we talked about the new party or festival that Amazon was going to throw at reInvent. There has apparently appeared a new website, intersect.aws, which has information about the new music festival. Apparently, which we missed last time, it's going to be Friday and Saturday night. I guess is how the dates work out on that, 'cause it's December 6th through 7th.
Oh, at the end.
Yeah, at the very end. So it sounds like the normal reInvent party will be on Thursday or Thursday the 5th, and then on Saturday and Friday and Saturday night will be the Intersect festival. So it'll probably be an additional ticket. You can win VIP passes though to the boxes and stuff. So it sounds like basically what I think's happened is Amazon's realized the cost of setting up a one-day reInvent replay party is too expensive. And so to spread that cost out, they will now sell tickets to 2 other nights and basically make this a much more cost-effective event, I think is kind of what's happened here. If I were to be reading the tea leaves in any way about this.
I think so, and there's no mention of Intel either, who are the prime sponsors of the replay party before, so maybe they pulled out.
Yeah, or they just only care about Thursday night. So I mean, but Apple just bought their modem business for a lot of money, so they have money to pay for the party.
There you go.
The problem is. Well, it's earnings season, our favorite time of the year, here for Q2. So we'll start off with Amazon. So Amazon shares dip, missing profit expectations as the tech giant posts $63.4 billion in Q2 revenue. Apparently, this was not what the analysts expected. They only expected 62.5, but the analysts were unhappy about the profitability per share, which only came in at $5.22 per share when they expected it to be $5.57. So because the analysts are bad at their job, Amazon stock definitely was impacted about 8 to 10% in the day after the earnings announced. So good times. But the interesting part for us here at the Cloud Pod, of course, is the cloud business, which was up apparently 37% at $8.4 billion, with $2.1 billion in operating income coming from the Amazon Web Services business. Revenue at Amazon Web Services did miss expectations slightly, as again the analysts were bad at their job, expected $8.5 million versus $8.4. And Amazon is now AWS is now accounting for 13% of Amazon's revenue and 67% of total operating income for Amazon.com. So Amazon continues to need AWS to help their numbers in a big way.
I think we need to have a word with these analysts. I mean, $63.4 billion in revenue, and the stock dips. It's just insane.
I think we need to have a talk with Jeff Bezos and be like, why are you bothering with the retail business?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm sure that the Q3 numbers are going to be huge, because didn't they have one of the best Prime days they've had ever? Wasn't that the announcement I heard? So, I mean, I'm sure their Q3 revenue numbers are going to be just fine.
Yeah.
They didn't suffer any huge outages or have to implement the cheesy, sorry, we can't load this page animations like they had last year or the year before. So I guess that's a good start.
Well, moving on to Azure, who also announced theirs. Well, actually, Microsoft did. But, Azure doesn't break their numbers out quite the same way. Microsoft trumpets a record year, as this was the end of their fiscal year as well, of $126 billion in annual revenue, of 14%, as well as quarterly profits beat their estimates, making Microsoft, of course, the most valuable company, still posting healthy growth rates. They have been a $1 trillion company since April, and I'll stay that way for the time being if they continue these results. Q4 revenue was up 12% to $33.7 billion, with operating income of $12.4 billion, or up 20%. And then the Intelligent Cloud division, which includes Office 365, Azure, and other businesses, was apparently up 19% to $11.4 billion of their revenue, powered by 64% annual revenue growth rate for Azure.
20% increase in operating income. That's incredible for a company that big.
Yeah, and these are just crazy numbers. But this is the first time the cloud division's actually brought in more revenue than either the productivity and business unit or the personal computing unit. And so that's a pretty big shift in their business to the cloud. There was some debate on Twitter I saw about this, because Amazon doesn't really have a document service or email service or any things that Google and Azure count in their cloud revenue. And so some people were saying, is that really fair? And my thought was, well, if Azure's revenue for their cloud was as big as Amazon's, they would be touting that. So I think it's fine for them to be separate still. How we said that asterisk next to Azure and Google, that that includes Google Cloud rates as well as Office 365 and those numbers. And then Google announced their earnings. Google CEO Sundar Pichai announced that the GCP unit now has an $8 billion annual run rate, up from the $4 billion it reported in early 2018. Report point at AWS at a $30 billion run rate versus Azure at $11 billion. So $8 billion is not that far off, only about $3 million difference. Sundar said Q2 was another strong quarter for Google Cloud, which reached an annual revenue rate of over $8 billion and continues to grow at a significant pace. Customers are choosing Google Cloud for a variety of reasons, including reliability and uptime are critical. Retailers like Lowe's are leveraging the cloud as one of the important tools to transform their customer experience and supply chain.
So when they talk about an annual run rate of $8 billion, what they're really talking about is $2 billion quarterly.
That is correct.
Yes.
Okay, so compare that with Amazon at 63.4 and Microsoft at, what was that huge number?
Well, but you had to look at just the cloud run rate. So this is $8 billion for the
Yeah.
cloud business. Azure's cloud billion is $11 billion, and then Amazon's annual run rate is $30 billion. So they're not that far off, but they're still not in the same league.
Yeah, they're 25%. That's good, though. It's enough.
I think it makes them a very healthy third player. But Alphabet overall, had 90% increase in revenues year over year, with their operating margin increasing from 9% to 24% on $9.18 billion in operating income. So net, I think these cloud businesses are very profitable for these companies. The margins are quite healthy, and they can hide a lot of other sins in the business units with these products. So overall, the cloud strategy is working really well for these companies.
Yeah, I kind of think Google aren't really trying just yet, or maybe they're starting to try hard, but I don't think they've really put much effort into it. I think in the next year it's going to change completely.
I expect that they're going to continue to grow like gangbusters over the next year or two.
Yeah.
Their focus on enterprise, their desire to do a much bigger business in this space, the ability to get into enterprise accounts with their sales team is getting better. I think they have more opportunities in the future than ever before.
I'm super. The one headwind I see them having potentially is the big if Amazon gets pressured enough and spins off AWS, because then the retailers conceivably won't consider AWS a competitor.
That forcing function still, like we talked about last week, is a couple of years
Yeah.
away at best for the DOJ to get done through an antitrust thing and come with a settlement. So it's quite a ways.
Unless Amazon makes the decision that portion of the company is more valuable, spun off on their own.
I've seen a bunch of articles in the last week about that exact topic, and based on just the amount of margin that the AWS business unit brings to the table, I think it would be bad for Amazon.com stock for them to spin it off, just because of the amount of profit that it adds to the business is very hides a lot of sins of the retail business and a lot of discounting they can do there. So I think it would be somewhat problematic for them to do that.
Or do you think if you were Walmart, you'd still use the Amazon Web Services cloud if it was spun off, or do you think the money still rolls up to Jeff?
I don't think they care that it runs up to Jeff. I think they would care if it's still partially owned by Amazon. And so if there's any benefit of AWS revenues or ownership going to Amazon, I think that's where they would have an issue. So you'd have to completely sever them.
Right, because they could subsidize their retail business with the profits from the money they're getting from their competitors. That's the problem.
The key thing would be that if they were to spin off AWS, you're talking about Andy Jassy most likely being the CEO. They would probably promote someone like Colm to be the CTO, or Werner would move over from Amazon.com and they get a different CTO for Amazon. You don't know how that split would work, but you can definitely see that it would be as much of a single entity as it could be. And that might take a while to even divorce them apart. It might be years.
Yeah, so. I don't think it's going to be a voluntary thing.
No, I don't think they're going to do it because they want to do it. They're going to do it because they're going to have to do it. Well, moving on to other news, DigitalOcean has gotten a new CEO and CFO. They've appointed former SendGrid CEO and CFO Yancey Spruill as the new CEO, and former Enernoc CFO Bill Sorensen as the new CFO. Spruill replaced Mark Templeton, who joined the company about a year ago and who announced his decision to step down for personal reasons in May. DigitalOcean is a brand I followed and admired for a while. The leadership team has done a tremendous job building out the products, services, and most importantly, a community that puts developers' needs first, said Spruill in today's announcement. We have a multi-billion-dollar revenue opportunity in front of us, and I'm looking forward to working closely with our strong leadership team to build upon the current strategy to drive DigitalOcean to the company's full potential. And you further on in the article, you can see that they talk about even a small piece of the overall cloud pie can be quite lucrative for a company such as DigitalOcean. So that'd be very interesting. But the fact that Sproul and the new CFO, they both were in companies that IPO'd and or got acquired by bigger players. I would wonder if DigitalOcean has an exit maybe in its future.
Do you think it's likely that someone's going to buy them, buy DigitalOcean for their own property, though?
Maybe they'll just buy them for their documentation.
Maybe.
I mean, IBM's buried SoftLayer in the ground so far now. I mean, they need a new cloud provider to bury, so maybe pick up DigitalOcean as part of the deal. I don't know. Yeah. Which would make me sad if that were to actually happen, because I do like DigitalOcean. But overall, I'm glad to see they got a new CEO and new CFO. Curious to see where they end up kind of going from here. But I think they're making good strides as being a solid cloud provider that isn't one of the big three. So we'll see. Well, of course, just Jedi news, as you might expect. So, of course, Amazon and Oracle and Azure have been in this battle for a while. Oracle suing the government about the bidding process, contending that there was, conflicts of interest in the bidding process. That was thrown out, we talked about a couple weeks ago, by the judge, saying, that Oracle didn't even meet the basic requirements of the bid, and so they can't be upset about it when they don't meet the basic requirements. But, of course, that has now... Larry Ellison was in part of the transition team for Donald Trump, and so this has now gotten to Donald Trump's ears through various lobbying interests, and he is now out there saying that he has questions about this deal and really wants to take a hard look at it. So that would be pretty interesting.
The irony is fantastic, though. I mean, complaining about conflict of interest when you're one of Donald Trump's best buddies just seems to be, the pot calling the kettle black kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Apparently there's some document that they've drawn up that has a flow chart and pretty pictures to help explain to Donald how all the people are connected and who works for AWS and who works for the DoD and how they all connect.
Does it lead to WMD stores in Iraq, maybe?
I don't think so. But the document's titled "A Conspiracy to Create a 10-Year DoD Cloud Monopoly."
It was drawn in crayon, and it did come with a tinfoil hat.
Indeed. Well, Amazon is not stepping back on this, though. They are hiring a lobbyist with Trump ties to help with them with their contentious Pentagon Cloud contest. They've hired Jeff Miller, a former fundraiser for President Donald Trump, according to a lobbying disclosure form published last week. Miller Strategies, which is his company, will advocate on Amazon's behalf on issues related to cybersecurity and technology. So this is their attempt to hopefully try to get in good graces of Mr. Trump to get the bid on their favor.
I would hope the law would be in the favour of fairness, really. I thought the whole premise of the market economy is that the government didn't interfere in this way, in those kind of decisions.
Well, when the government is the buyer.
Yeah.
Yeah, how does the government not interfere with itself?
It does muddy the water slightly.
It does. But hopefully, hopefully this helps kind of balance the favor a little bit. And, there's still a question about if it's going to be, they're going to be able to issue the DoD contract in July, August timeframe still, or is this a further delay because Trump is definitely going to take a look at it in a big way. There's also been several other senators and House representatives who've been writing letters to Donald saying they're concerned. So that Oracle lobbyist money is hard at work right now trying to get this shot down in multiple ways.
I just think it's hilarious because regardless of who wins it, it's not going to be Oracle. They're just wasting their time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is if they had a real fight in the game, then you can maybe argue that this makes sense but they just don't. But I mean, I think the big risk to them is that if they don't win the government, who else is going to buy their cloud? And so, it's definitely the wrong direction for Oracle for them to lose a huge DoD contract, which they've typically been very heavily engaged in the past. So.
Yeah, I never really thought of it as the government endorsing a particular company for their technology. But I suppose if you think of it that way, it makes sense that people will be arguing to the last second.
Even when it gets awarded, it might still get challenged, and there might still be some follow-up issues. I mean, there's been push that they want the DoD should split the contract into multiple parts and award it to multiple providers, and it's too much risk of a single bidder. Similar to KBR Halliburton back in the Iraq War days, is that really the way they want to go? And I don't know. It's a hard decision to make, and I think the government is going to be struggling long enough just to get onto the cloud, let alone try to get onto multiple clouds. So I recommend they stick with one for the time.
Even if they went to three. Oracle's not going to win any of the top 3 spots.
Well, I mean, against Google, they could potentially, but they'd have to meet the requirements. That's the step one.
I'd put my money on Google on that one to come in third.
I just don't know that Google has the federal government certification. I don't think they've done anything with FedRAMP yet. I don't think they've done a lot with top secret and high. I mean, I'm sure they could quickly. They have the money to do so. But I think this late in the game, for them to change that completely would be hard.
Hey everyone, Jonathan here. I just wanted to take a minute to thank the cloud consulting gurus at Foghorn for helping make the CloudPod possible. These folks truly get it. Cloud consulting experts since 2008, they are premier tier partners with AWS, Google Cloud Platform Silver, and Microsoft Azure partners. From multi-cloud to containers to moving full production workloads to the cloud under the tightest compliance, Foghorn's team of full-stack cloud engineers have been there, done that, gotten the t-shirt, and are ready to share their experience with you. If you're in the market for some talent to supplement your team, visit www.fogops.io/thecloudpod. www.fogops.io/thecloudpod. Foghorn, the promise of cloud delivered.
Well, moving on to some other unfortunate news. Capital One has been hacked for over 106 million customers affected. This apparently data breach exposed credit card application data for those who applied from 2005 to 2019. This affects both U.S. citizens as well as Canadians. The data leaked includes names, addresses, zip codes, phone numbers, email addresses, date of birth, and self-reported income of those who applied, as well as information like credit score, credit limit, balances, payment history, and information. For the U.S. people, the Social Security number was encrypted and tokenized, so it was not exposed. But for Canada, the social insurance numbers were compromised. They did not encrypt those, as they're not required to do so. Transaction data for 23 days was also obtained from 2016, 2017, and 2018, and an arrest was made in connection with this data exposure of an engineer who formerly worked in AWS in Seattle. So this is a pretty interesting story that has been burning down the internet for the last 24 to 48 hours here. On one side, I feel pretty good that Capital One reported this very quickly. They acknowledged the breach. They addressed it very quickly. And I'm sure they're looking into things like credit monitoring service and whatnot. But the fact that this was a compromise, apparently from the DOJ brief that was filed in the arrest, this person was able to obtain EC2 instance role keys from exposed WAF appliance of some sort, and then use those keys to basically be able to go access S3, list buckets, and pull down data, which is a pretty big violation of least privilege concepts on the Capital One part. So overall, this is going to have a lot of ripples, not only in the fintech space, but as well as in just general security, especially with AWS. And I think there's going to be a lot of scrutiny put onto the EC2 metadata service and how that gets accessed, and how you apply roles to it and how you restrict those roles. It's become a big topic of interest for companies here very, very quickly.
I think it's pretty funny watching people on Twitter complaining to Capital One about not notifying them first. Why did I find this out on Twitter instead of from my bank? And well, the answer is it was probably kept confidential up until at least the woman had been arrested or taken into custody. But people asking, well, how do I know? How do I know if my data's been lost? Well, I think at 100 million individuals' data being lost, that pretty much counts in everybody who's ever applied for a credit card at Capital One. That's what did we figure out earlier, Justin? It was like a third of the adult US population.
Yeah, definitely.
But having said that, we already lost all our data many times before, so there's nothing really new here.
Well, that's
Corey Quinn had the best tweet on this, though. They said if this had been Wells Fargo, there would have been 975 million U.S. applications breached due to their use of fraudulent information for applications.
That's funny.
And I just, you hope we get to the point sooner rather than later that Social Security numbers are considered basically public, i.e. we don't use them for anything.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that happens at some point in the future, too, but it hasn't happened yet, and I don't see a big move for that, but there's got to be a better system.
Well, once they're all out there.
Right. Once they're not secret, what does it matter?
What does it matter?
So. But it's interesting to me, this hacker, and we won't share her name, but you can find it very quickly on the internet, apparently was able to get this access to this data, was able to exfiltrate it from their network through VPC. And this is really an Amazon flaw in the fact that you can't really restrict these IAM roles to just the VP inside of VPC. You can, if you get those credentials, you can use them really anywhere. But then apparently posted it on a public GitHub, just bragged about it in a bunch of Slack channels, and was just very vocal about the fact that she got this information. And it's always fascinating to me. It's like, wow, on one side you did a pretty impressive hack, and on the other side you just completely blundered the back end half of this transaction.
To be fair, if you use a VPC S3 gateway, you can apply policies which restrict access to the bucket from only the VPC itself. But presumably Capital One have more than one VPC, and we know that IAM policies are limited in the size that they can be, and the more you scale, the more difficult it is to actually lock things down the way you want. I kind of wonder, it didn't seem very smart just giving this information out freely on the internet. So do you credit the hacker with actually discovering this, or do you think there was an insider who perhaps gave some information? I think maybe more will come out in the trial.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if they're, because I'm still confused how she got the EC2 instance metadata. Even if the WAF was misconfigured and they were saying the keys were basically set for a timeout of 6 hours, which is a configuration choice that Capital One can make. But then, did she have SSH keys to log into the server that had this data exposed to her? Was the WAF actually presenting the metadata service data out on a normal web page? There's a bunch of questions about how she gets the first set. And I get it after she gets the keys, how she gets into the data and how she exfiltrates it. I don't understand how she gets the keys to begin with, and that's the one piece that I'm hoping either Capital One writes a blog post about it after they fix it, or we get some more information in the trial. Or I know she's on Thursday this week. She'll be going in front of, she'll basically be getting her bail hearing, and so maybe she'll be released on bail. Maybe she'll be back on Twitter bragging about what she did or didn't do. I don't know, or ratting somebody else out if there's an accomplice in this whole thing. But definitely there's some questions about what they've released and what's in the DOJ brief, and there's a lot more questions than I think there are answers right now.
Yep.
But I do look forward to that $125 check from Capital One sometime. Sometime soon. Like my Equifax, I'll frame them next to each other. All right, let's move on to AWS news. So Amazon has released EKS CUDL, or EKS CTL, or EKS Control, or however you want to call that CUDL thing. This is the new EKS CLI. So Amazon reports that when they first released EKS, they had a plan for a more full-featured command line tool. But with the great open source work of the EKS CTL team, the team at Amazon decided to join that project instead of building their own CLI. So now apparently EKS CTL, or CUDL, or Control, is now officially the command line for EKS. Amazon continued to receive positive feedback on the fact they backed an open source project, which they definitely need that win. And then EKS CTL allows you to do create, get, list, delete clusters, create and drain node groups, scale a node group, update clusters, use custom AMIs, your VPCs, spin up clusters, etc., etc. And you can also use GitOps to help manage your Kubernetes environment with this EKS CUDL project.
Yeah, I mean, how generous of them to join a project like this, which directly enhances their own service. I mean, it's just fantastic.
I mean, they did save themselves a 2 pizza.
They did.
There's 2 pizzas they didn't have to pay for.
Yeah, I guess so. But why is this its own tool and not built into the rest of the AWS CLI? Why isn't it, AWS EKS do a thing? Why is it a separate tool?
I mean, I think the problem with kube control in general is that you end up, there's a ton of functionality built into that, and if you were to rewrite all that functionality into the Amazon CLI, then I don't think you could necessarily make the tools as portable with other Kubernetes implementations. So by using, it's basically it's a version of kubectl, but with EKS kind of built under the hood. But all the APIs look the same, all the commands kind of look the same to other products that are using EKS or Kubernetes. And so it kind of helps you bridge that gap without having to understand the Amazon implementation details. You just run your commands as normal as you would for any other Kubernetes project, but just using this command instead. And you get that benefit.
I think the real reason is they just didn't want to have to rewrite the thing in Python because it's written in Go.
I mean, that could be too. Yeah. I mean, I like to go with the more sophisticated answer of it would be more complicated. But maybe they're just lazy. They don't want to write Go code.
I think so.
Yeah, sure. I'll go with it.
I don't want to write it.
Amazon has released a new resource optimization recommendation page. AWS now generates these custom Amazon EC2 resource optimization recommendations, calculating ideal configurations based on your past usage using machine learning. These recommendations are available to you in the Amazon Cost Management product suite, and you can identify those opportunities right now in your console with a simple click of the button and estimate your savings, monthly optimizations, as well as your overall payer situation, either at the payer level or at the individual accounts. It does not support GPU instances, so if you're doing that, this won't help you, and it does not provide reservation recommendations beyond flexible reserved instances, so if you don't like those flexible ones, this won't work for you. And once you opt in for the service, it does take about 24 hours to do the first generation of the data.
Yeah, this is still a top 3 issue with most companies who are significantly in the cloud, so the more tools, the better.
Yeah, so it told me for the CloudPod account that the server was over-provisioned and I could cut it down in significant portions. But
That's disappointing.
I pay for it on the spot market. I pay for it on the spot market pricing, so I don't really care because I'm only paying pennies per dollar of what it would really cost me, so I don't really care. But it was a nice recommendation. I appreciate it.
I know I've been doing a lot of cost management investigation recently, and I think one of the things that Amazon don't expose is memory usage by default in CloudWatch. You can get CPU usage easily from the hypervisor, but not memory usage. And I think it's a bit of a miss because even though CPU may be only 40% utilized, memory may be at 95%, and we have no way of knowing that. So I kind of question how useful these kind of recommendations are going to be unless they get further insights into what's actually going on the machine.
Well, isn't it if you install the SSM agent, don't you get expanded memory monitoring for some of those things?
But does this pull from the SSM?
That's the question.
I don't know.
That's the question.
I mean, I don't think SSM stores that data differently. I think it just adds in some CloudWatch agents that have that built into it.
Possibly.
But I don't know.
It seems like it would be an easy
yeah,
one, though. I mean, like memory is so key. Just go ahead and plug into memory as well for this one particular use case.
That's been an issue with CloudWatch, though, since its inception, that they don't really have a good memory monitor built into the plugin. And I'm surprised they haven't fixed that or provided something native. Their instructions are always, write your own bit of custom code to do it.
Yeah, but the CloudWatch agent does it, and that's pretty baked at this point.
Did you ever get that working? Did they finally rewrite it from that horrendous Perl implementation that they had years ago? Because every time I've tried to install the agent, it's like got to install this CPAN library from 1993 or something, and it always fails miserably.
I have not had a problem.
That's my litmus test for open source projects. If they mention CPAN in the instructions, I bail out.
I have had no problem with it.
There are some things they could do from the hypervisor level, but they could at least look at the number of different memory pages that are being touched. But even that's probably not enough to be useful.
I mean, also disk metrics are not included by default. You could tell if the EBS volume was provisioned, but you couldn't tell how much space was actually used.
Right. You get all the IOPS, you can get queue depth and all that, but you can't see what's actually being used.
Yeah, that's interesting. I came across some EBS volumes earlier which had been provisioned as pre-provisioned IOPS. And actually, for the size of the volume and the number of IOPS that have been provisioned, they were getting worse performance, but paying about 3 times as much as they would have done if they just used GP2.
Yeah.
So I think, there should be some kind of public announcement like, IO provisioned storage unless you absolutely have to.
There's almost no reason to.
Yeah.
There's a couple edge cases.
The new CloudWatch agent right now, and it does cover a bunch of the memory stuff. It covers a lot more network details, netstat, processes, swap usage, disk space. So yeah, the new agent fixes all your complaints.
It's super slick. I like it.
But my first Google search, which this is the problem with Amazon documents, when I said CloudWatch agent, I went to the old documentation which said you had to run these terrible Python or Perl scripts to get the data.
That's the one.
but then on the very top it says there's a new CloudWatch agent available, and you can click on that. But this is one of those areas where please deprecate this old documentation, because the first thing that came up to me was the Perl scripts, which is what I remember doing, which was awful.
Yeah, I think for the 4th year running, when we go to reInvent this year, we'll have to mention again the quality of the ancient support pages that they really just need to. Just trash. I mean, I get that they want people who've stored deep links in other pages to always hit a relevant page, but at some point you've got to cut them off and say, no, this tutorial from like the NAT gateway kind of era from 7 years ago, it's time to shut that thing down and send them somewhere else.
Even on this page, I wish they had made the section bold, so that you should look at it, because it literally says, a new multi-platform CloudWatch agent is available. That should be bold and in red. If you still use the old one, then follow the below instructions. But if you're not, go to the new thing, because using statsd and collectd, which is what the new agent's based on, is a much better choice.
Yep.
So, Stackery IO has a new Amazon Lambda developers serverless local development environment tool for you. This new tool allows developers to test cloud services on their laptops, and the new tool is free. The new tool is called Cloud Local and works with Amazon Lambda today. Stackery CTO and co-founder Chase Douglas says the company has essentially found a way to replicate the cloud on the developer's local laptop. In quotes, "We help you take your laptop to the cloud. What I mean by that is that we take some best practices and tools that Amazon provides which make it possible to run the runtime of your function on your laptop," Douglas explained. "Then we add on to that the same permission credentials that your function would use as though it were running in Lambda. Then we go and fetch more about the environment of that Lambda, like environment variable values, which is key for things like service discovery and parameterization. Before having a tool like this, of course, Cloud Local developers would have to mock services on the laptop, which creates a lot of never-ending extra work and might not match the way the code will actually run in production. So if you're doing Lambda development, local development tool from Stackery might be something to check out.
It sounds interesting. I'm not sure how revolutionary it is, given that a few months ago we talked about developing in Docker containers before, and with things like local stack, this has all been possible, but they've wrapped it up nicely into an easy to use tool. So, and it's free.
I don't remember if local stack actually pulls in environmental variables or service discovery things about the Lambda runtime. So that's the thing that I was kind of intrigued about. That was kind of different and new, and so I think that's nice. And if local stack isn't working for you, then this might be the right way to go.
I thought the AWS SAM tooling provided a local Lambda kind of sandbox anyway.
It does, but I mean, the SAM framework is so prescriptive in how you have to do Lambda development that I don't really care for the Git flow they use for it. I don't really care for some of the SAM methods that they want you to use. So I like the idea of having something that's a little less prescriptive and a little just more like, hey, I want to test something and I want to do it quickly.
Yep.
Yeah. So is this like a freemium offering? Are they do they have some other product which they want you to actually buy eventually, or what's what the Stackery? What does the Stackery product line actually look like? I mean, you don't give things away for free. That's no way to make money.
Come on. Don't you remember 1999? That was a legitimate business model.
I mean, basically, it looks like it's a much better Lambda UI to allow you to build software development across teams and do collaboration on Lambda functions. I mean, that's their main product. The local development thing is free, and they definitely want to get you into their platform if you can, but that's not required.
Yeah, that's definitely something I'm going to check out.
Yeah, I think it's worth taking a quick peek at and see if it makes sense for your use case. And if not, local stack is still out there for you. And then, of course, there's Firecracker and a bunch of other ways to run Lambda functions in different ways. So, Amazon has launched their first chatbot for chatops. This is a beta launch for the chatbot that plugs right into Slack or Amazon Chime channels and can inform you of issues with your AWS resources. Amazon has long, of course, offered tools to help you build your own chatbot, but this is the first fully built bot from Amazon directly. The bot hooks into SNS, which integrates with CloudWatch, Amazon Health, Budget, Security Hub, GuardDuty, and CloudFormation. There's a quote here from the product manager, Ilya Bezdelov. DevOps teams widely use chat rooms as communication hubs where the team's members interact, both with one another and with the systems that they operate. Bots help facilitate these interactions, delivering important notifications and relaying commands from users back to systems. Many teams even prefer that the operational events and notifications come through the chat rooms where the entire team can see the notifications and discuss next steps. Of course, right now you can only receive data from AWS. This is not a way to, that alert says, I need to add more disk space. I can't tell it to go add more EBS disk space to it yet. But hopefully that'll be coming sometime in the future. So this is a one-way from Amazon to you, but it's still better than nothing.
More chatbot. I want more chatbot.
It's a beta release, so, hopefully they get much more.
Yes.
Well, I mean, hackers have been using command and control over IRC for a very long time, so they're halfway to having what the rest of the world's got.
It works with Chime, though. This is the first chatbot that I know of that works with Chime natively.
It'll probably be the only chatbot that works with Chime natively. Let's face it.
Yeah, I didn't see a WhoBot plugin for Chime.
Lita, maybe Lita.
But yeah, no, I think the more they get into chatbots and chatops, I think the better off they're going to be. And if they could build more patterns, I think that's going to be great. So all those tools they've been building to build chatbots, now being actually developed into something beyond primitives, I think is super helpful.
Yeah, next week or the week after, there'll be a Amazon certification for chatbot builders.
Oh, I'm sure there will be. Yes, to go along with the cars and all the other fun things you can build on Amazon that no one uses.
Well, if they ever ship the cars, I would be happy to work on the RoboMaker racetrack thing. But yeah.
Yeah, I got a notification that my car was delayed once again, so I don't know if they're ever going to come.
Oh, well, my order was cancelled.
Oh,
accidentally. They said, "Oh, sorry, we didn't mean to cancel everyone's orders." I'm like, "Really? It's been it's like 10 months now, 9 months since reInvent, and we all ordered it basically from the conference center. Well, during the keynote when the thing was announced, and 9 months later we got nothing, and it's been delays, and then they cancel everybody orders. So I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm done with this.
It seems like it would make it hard to win the competition to win free tickets to reInvent if you don't have the actual car. I mean, I guess the simulator works just as well, but it is kind of a bummer.
Yeah, it seems like very, very poor execution. I wonder if they had some severe cost problems or something else. I don't know. It'd be.
Well, I mean, if it's like any other Indiegogo campaign, those things never get shipped sometimes.
I've still got a Kickstarter. It's 4 years old now.
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah, they're still promising to ship my stuff eventually.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had this wallet that has a built-in battery pack, so you can charge your phone with this wallet. And I finally emailed them because they said it was supposed to be delivered August last year, and I just emailed them, this is a total sidebar. I emailed them, and they responded back and said, well, we don't actually know what group you're in, and since we don't know what group you're in, we can't tell you when you're actually going to get the item, but just trust us, it'll eventually be shipped. Nice. And I was like, okay, yeah, I don't know if I believe you.
Yeah.
But every month they send out an email saying, how they're doing on shipping product out. Hello. And it cracks me up because they say, we shipped 800 units this month, and I'm like, okay, but I have no context to what you're saying. Like, for all I know, I'm one of 25,000 people waiting, and 800 a month is going to take a long time to get to. AWS Client VPN now adds support for split tunneling. As you guys know, Amazon Client VPN was released like 4 weeks ago, and did not support split tunneling, which is a problem for some companies who don't want to pay for the hairpin of traffic to AWS and back to their office locations. So this gives you more flexibility to determine what goes over that tunnel versus the local internet gateway of the user. So for non-fintech companies, this is a really nice solution. For everyone who's in fintech or HIPAA, this is not a good solution, and don't enable this. So there you go.
I do despise VPNs that don't allow split tunneling, because all of a sudden you can't print to your local printer. You can't. It's a pain.
I hadn't really thought about when that announcement came out, was that if you're hairpinning all that traffic to AWS, now you're paying for data transfer costs for all that VPN traffic, both in and out now.
Yeah,
so that's super awesome.
And I would deliberately, listen to YouTube Music or some other kind of streaming service just to penalize people for forcing me to use their VPN. So I'm going to watch those HD movies over the VPN.
Make sure you download all your Linux distributions.
That's right, all 100 million laptop. Capital One credit card applications.
Again, that was Jonathan saying that, FBI, not myself.
Yes. Yeah, if you want to arrest me, my address is...
Amazon Secrets Manager now supports VPC endpoint policies. These VPC endpoint policies make it easier for you to restrict egress of secrets from your Amazon VPC, which might come in handy for our friends at Capital One. So when you create a VPC endpoint for Secrets Manager, you can now attach an endpoint policy to define the Secrets Manager actions that can be performed, the secrets these actions can be performed on, and the IAM user or role that can perform the action, and the accounts that can be accessed via the VPC endpoint. This new VPC endpoint capability allows you to meet compliance and regulatory compliance by granularly controlling access to Secret Manager APIs, which you definitely don't want those to be accessed over the internet, so restrict those down as soon as possible.
That's obviously a high value add feature, given the fact that it's a security product.
Well, I mean, based on this Capital One thing, I hope to see a ton of improvements to metadata security, maybe that proxy that Jonathan talked about in, I think, episode 17. At least you put a header into it. I'd like to see that become a product. I'd like to see more restrictions capable for IAM roles. And so hopefully we'll see that stuff coming soon based on this latest oops.
I'd like to see... I mean, there is a way to use IP tables just to completely block access to the metadata endpoint. But if you've got root, you can undo that. But... yeah, I mean, just turning off the metadata service completely after 10 minutes or something of an instance running would be fantastic, because you've got your keys by then. You don't necessarily need it.
Well, but they rotate every 60 minutes if you take the defaults, or maybe more frequently or less frequently depending on that timeout. So you can't completely disable it, especially if you're running like SQL Server that needs those credentials to talk to some other service.
SQL Server.
Or if you need a web server to talk to a SQL Server and RDS, those are being rotated often. So.
Wow.
Yeah, there's reasons you can't just turn it off, Jonathan.
I should put my secrets in Secret Manager then, instead of using the metadata endpoint. Then it's just.
Yeah, if you could put IAM. I mean, yeah, why aren't IAM roles available to me in Secrets Manager? What's up with that?
They're not going to have access. Oh, it's just turtles all the way down.
Amazon has announced the new Amazon Middle East Bahrain region today, announcing the immediate availability of this region, which is the first region in the Middle East and consists of 3 availability zones, so you don't have any of those split brain problems. This now brings Amazon's total global regions to 22 and 69 availability zones. So that's pretty nice. They had not released pricing for this region yet as of press time, and so I'll have an update for you guys hopefully next week when they have the pricing up to date. But not all the services are there, so of course do check out the regional product and services page on Amazon's website to determine which services are available to you on launch day. And now we'll have a new flood of lightning round topics about new features that are not new features being announced in the East Bahrain, Bahrain region.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're going to have every feature that the oil and gas industry needed when they decided to build the data center there.
Hey, what about the...
Yes, there was a lot of machine learning components I noticed in the list.
Yeah, maybe.
So,
what about the Formula One race? I think it's all for the Formula One race.
Oh, Peter. Well. The Formula One does not pay the Amazon bills, let me tell you. All right, let's move on to Google news. So Google is partnering with VMware to bring virtualized workloads to GCP, which is a little bit of a misnomer because it's actually a VMware partner that is the same CloudSimple LLC, which is the same partner that brought it to Azure. The service is being offered for you on top of Google as well as Azure, if you remember that episode, and now provides VMware, NSX-T, vCenter, and vSAN capabilities to migrate your workload to the cloud on both GCP and, of course, Azure a few months back. So this is their VMware's way of, I think, getting around maybe some non-compete agreements they have with AWS to build VMware on AWS. They just have a partner
really.
is my guess. And so this is nice. So now if you're using one of the hyperscalers, you can move your VMware workload there pretty simply. So nice for those legacy shops that don't want to re-platform.
Yeah, I guess like step by step, VMware are slowly giving away their entire business.
Who needs all these tools once you're on the cloud? So. Then Google also released a new blog post about how to learn GCP by setting up a kid-controllable Minecraft server. And this is just a fun article. There's a lot of us here in the office who love Minecraft and have kids who love Minecraft. And so this is a full write-up by one of their solutions architects who's worked at multiple cloud providers. And every time he goes to a new cloud provider, he learns it by building out a Minecraft solution. So in this solution, he leverages compute, cloud storage, cloud functions, and firewalls to enable his kids and friends to easily start and stop the Minecraft server as well as run the main server components. And this is a fun way to learn clouds, and your kids will love you for it if you follow his instructions. So pretty fun blog post, just something a little bit more light for our day of Capital One hacks.
Yeah, I guess if he'd used Docker, he could just have done it once for all three platforms.
Yeah, really.
Right, exactly. I was wondering that too. I was like, well, if you just put this on Kubernetes, you could have solved a lot of problems.
Yeah.
So maybe he can update it to use Anthos at some point.
I got a Minecraft server running in AWS, and it shuts down automatically when there's no network connections open to it. And I trigger the power on from Route 53 public DNS. You can CloudWatch logs all the DNS queries that hit your public zones. And so if the server's turned off and somebody does a DNS lookup on my server address, EC2 powers up the machine and it runs until we finish playing.
That's awesome.
Shuts itself down again. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. The nice thing about that, so he uses Cloud Functions to kind of do that in the solution, but one thing he had on there, he also built Cloud Functions to invite their friends. So if they have friends who want to play with him on their Minecraft server, they can just go to a little web form and submit that in, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, so you should improve your structure with Lambda and do that.
I don't have enough friends to worry about that kind of thing.
Indeed. All right, moving on to Azure news. Azure has published guidance for secure cloud adoption by the governments. Of course, this is all in preparation for Jedi. And so they provided a set of guides, digital transformation, new solutions, and selecting architectures that will help governments transition many of their workloads to the cloud. They hope to give answers to common cloud security-related questions. And Microsoft has published a new white paper called Azure for Secure Worldwide Public Sector Cloud Adoption, which is a mind-numbingly boring article. But the paper covers common isolation and security concerns pertinent in the public sector customer cloud environments. It also explores technologies available to Azure to help safeguard unclassified, confidential, and sensitive workloads in the public multi-tenant cloud, and as well as using the Azure Stack and Azure Data Box Edge deployed on premises, how you can use it for fully disconnected scenarios for highly sensitive data. Some of the concerns they cover: data residency and data sovereignty, government access to the customer data, data encryption, access to customer data by Microsoft personnel, threat detection, private and hybrid cloud options, cloud compliance certifications, and conceptual architectures for classified workloads. So if you're in the government trying to get onto Azure, do check out these resources for you today. So LinkedIn's decided to go all in on the cloud, and can you guys guess which platform they might be choosing?
GCP.
Is it the least reliable platform?
It
Software.
is the least reliable platform.
Software.
I was thinking Oracle Cloud, but no. LinkedIn is moving, of course, all of its data to the public cloud on top of Microsoft Azure, who is their owner, and so they didn't have to look too far to find the right provider for them. The SVP of Engineering, Mohawk Shroff, wrote that the company is embarking on a multi-year migration of all workloads to Microsoft Azure. Moving to Azure will give us access to the wide array of hardware and software innovations on unprecedented global scale, Shroff wrote in the post. This will position us to focus on areas where we can deliver unique value to our members and customers. Today, apparently, LinkedIn operates about 5 data centers, including a primary corporate DC, 3 more in the U.S., and 1 in Singapore. And they've written an entire blog post on the engineering blog for LinkedIn detailing their plans and how they're going to move to the cloud. So if you're interested in what LinkedIn's going to do, the creators of Kafka and a bunch of other services, do check that out on the website.
Well, maybe once they move to the public cloud, they can afford to reduce their premium membership from what is it, like $30-$40 a month, down to something more palatable.
I was grandfathered in on the premium thing a long time ago, so I'm still paying, I think, $150 a year for LinkedIn Premium that they don't offer to anybody else anymore because I just keep on doing it, and so I will hold on to that till my cold dead hands give it up. But I've been able to expense it the last few years, and every time someone asks me, like, why do you have this? I'm like, because it's so cheap that you don't want me to pay for it in the real price, which is like $400 a month. So you're welcome. Yeah, I'm saving you lots of money.
I guess when I get the executive salary, and it wouldn't bother me too much, but not yet.
And I have some friends over LinkedIn who are on the cost side. I'm curious to pick his brain someday about what they're doing, because LinkedIn's architecture is very complicated, unsurprisingly.
Yeah, I can only imagine it's going to be great feedback for the Azure product teams, and both on a reliability as well as functionality side, to have a great use case like this, sort of driving features forward that they need.
Well, it'd be a really great, very large Java, Linux shop moving on to Azure, right? Where most of Microsoft's technologies which are already on Azure are all .NET products. So they'll definitely get a lot of interesting lessons learned, and maybe some new technologies will come out of Azure because of this. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
I'm just glad they practiced the migrations on their paying customers like Carlsberg and who else did we mention a couple of weeks ago? Before they start to move their own stuff. It's very, very good of them.
Yeah, very nice. You think they're getting a deal on their cloud hosting from Azure? Do you think they're getting a discount?
Probably not. No, they'll probably write off as much as they possibly can.
Probably so. Microsoft has acquired data privacy and governance service provider Blue Talon. Blue Talon apparently is a company that helps enterprises set policies for how employees can access their own data. According to Crunchbase, they had previously raised $27.4 million from several investors. And Varohan Kumar, Microsoft's corporate VP for Azure Data, says the IP and talent acquired through Blue Talon brings a unique expertise at the apex of big data, security, and governance. This acquisition will enhance our ability to empower enterprises across the industries to digitally transform while ensuring right of use of data, centralized data governance at scale through Azure. This new Blue Talon team will become part of the Azure Data Governance Group, and will be pretty interesting to see what they come out with this product in the future.
Didn't say how many employees they were, did it?
They got 50, I think.
50? Yeah.
Yeah, it's not very big.
Pretty small.
Yeah. But, data governance and data security in the days of Capital One breach are very
good
important.
Brains.
So,
yeah, hire good brains.
They were able to announce this purchase before the Capital One breach was announced. So, Microsoft looks like they're ahead of the game. Well, that's it for new news. We did change the format a little bit this week with kind of segmenting up Azure, Google, and Amazon. What do you guys think? Was that if you guys don't like it out there in podcast land, do send us feedback. But we thought we'd make it a little bit simpler for you guys to follow along at home. But off to the lightning round, Peter.
I thought it was great. Yeah. Good job.
Yeah, me too.
I'm glad you liked it, Peter. Okay, I think it makes sense. And then if we ever get sophisticated enough to do podcast chapters, we could just chapter them, and then people could skip the cloud.
There you go. Actually, it's a great idea. Cool. Lightning round. AWS backup will now automatically copy tags from resources to recovery points.
This is one of those things like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. So glad you guys came up with that one. Like, I guess I didn't realize that I just had this huge pool of recovery points that I couldn't tell what they were, because they're probably using a GUID of some sort. So now at least I can copy a tag to them. That's super helpful.
They almost implemented all the features that I had to write in that lambda function a couple of years ago. So I'm just hoping they're going to finish
slowly but surely getting there, Jonathan. You'll be able to kill Snap.
Seriously, I'm just hoping they finish it off before I have to do any more work on that thing, because I hate going back to code I've written 6 months or a year ago, and I think, who on earth wrote this junk? Yeah, it was me.
I do the same thing, so I feel your pain.
I do that with whiteboards. When I walk into a room, I'm like, oh my God, that's my writing. New AWS certification exam vouchers, making certifying groups easier.
I mean, thank God I can finally bulk purchase exam vouchers. Who would have thought that I want to do that as an enterprise?
I was thinking maybe it was easier to certify because they take your average and then everybody passes.
everyone who pays for the exam gets averaged together. So make sure you take all the smart people.
AWS Budgets announces AWS chatbot integration just in time.
Oh, thank God. Now with the new chatbot, every service can announce chatbot integrations to keep that number of new services going up on the chart.
Yeah, there's nothing like trying to improve your budget than by paying for an additional service to tell you how much you're spending.
To warn you that you went over budget, but there's nothing you can do about it. Super helpful.
Yeah. New Google features for BigQuery. New persistent user-defined functions, increased concurrency limits, GIS and encryption functions, and much, much more.
You know what you really need for concurrency limits? Not 1 million concurrency limits, but 1 billion concurrency limits.
Excellent. AWS EFS encryption for data in transit has a new configuration update. I just had to implement this.
You got to break all of your NFS control points because of 1.2 TLS. You're welcome.
You mean no more Stunnel?
Nope, no more Stunnel. But you had to rip all the infrastructure out in it first.
So they don't call them breaking changes anymore. They just call them configuration updates.
Yeah.
I see how it is.
Amazon ECR now supports immutable image tags.
Who's really worried about people changing the image tags? Like, is that really a problem that people need them to be immutable? It's a little weird.
Well, maybe if you don't want someone changing a tag like from release candidate to prod and then it automatically gets pushed to prod because of your automation.
I don't know what you're talking about. I just use latest. What am I gonna do?
I don't know. If you're gonna start using tags for security purposes, which is what this drive has been for the last few months, why do you need immutable tags? Just make it so people can't edit the existing ones. Like to implement a whole separate class of tags just seems like you don't have confidence in your own product.
I mean, if IAM permissions are going to be based off tagging, then you can have more situations where your WAF exposes data. More ways to burn yourself very quickly.
I mean, if a resource had an ARN, that was already an immutable tag. It seems unnecessary.
Well, there you go. Amazon MSK, Managed Services for Kafka, is now PCI DSS compliant.
I'm so glad I can now send untokenized data of my credit cards to all of the services that don't actually need it because it's now PCI DSS compliant. Yay.
That's weird, right? I mean, if you don't know who the consumers are of your streams, how can you certify that the tool itself is compliant?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I guess this is the equivalent of what is that? It's similar to like Square Cash app, but it's Venmo. Like just it's the same thing as Venmo. That way you can just send all your transactions to all your friends over a Kafka PSI DSS compliant transaction stream. So there you go. Everyone can know what all your transactions are.
AWS CloudWatch logs insights as cross-log group querying. Wow. We are stunned.
I was gonna let Jonathan talk about it because he was excited to talk about it, so I was letting him go, and then he just didn't say anything.
I was just being polite and waiting.
I was waiting for you. You first.
Let's try this again. AWS CloudWatch logs insights adds cross-log group querying.
This can only be a good thing because the console sucked for trying to find things in multiple log streams, especially from Lambda and things like that. But this is great. I'm so happy that we've got cross-account, cross-region queries for CloudWatch logs now. It's what it needed to be all along.
I mean, I'm super happy that I don't have to go search per log group for my 100 cluster web server to find the one log that has the transaction that failed. So I can now search all 100 web server log groups.
Yep.
So that's nice.
AWS Spot instances now available for Red Hat Enterprise Linux.
But IBM love this.
Yeah, I was like, this must be an IBM thing because Red Hat hadn't done this before.
Is it good or bad? I guess it's good. Right? They get paid for every minute it's up.
In the Spot instance pricing, you still pay full license price. You just so
all right. AWS temporary queue client for Amazon SQS client has been released.
But if I have a client for SQS, I want it to be a client all the time, not just temporarily.
Well,
temp to perm client maybe.
Temp to perm. Okay.
I really like this announcement because one of the pain points of doing anything with message buses from Kafka or Kinesis or the new Event Bridge or even SQS, you had to write the queuing mechanism, you had to write all that logic into your application. So now by Amazon providing this as part of the SDK, it kind of handles that temporary queuing in case SQS isn't available or whatever else. So this is actually really nice because it kind of takes away a pattern that people were reinventing multiple times and globally optimizes it for all customers, which is nice.
Cool.
You can now use AWS Systems Manager maintenance windows to select resource groups as targets.
The Systems Manager thing, can we talk about this for 1 second? Like, can they make this product strategy coherent in any way? Like, I can't tell if this is a patching solution or it's a maintenance solution, it's an access management solution, it's a monitoring
configuration management. Don't forget configuration management.
Yeah, exactly. And then like last week we talked about it can do build deployments, like an artifact hosting. There's so much this thing does now that I can't even keep track of it. And its branding is horrendous.
Yeah, well, call me a pessimist, but I think Systems Manager is becoming a great vector for hackers.
Yeah,
for sure.
Azure blog post on how to use their new Azure Bastion host.
Now, Jonathan, how long have you been doing Linux admin work?
About 25 years.
When was the first time you used a Bastion host?
About 25 years ago.
Yeah, so all Linux people have been using Bastion hosts since Linux became a thing. So only Microsoft can have the audacity to believe that people need a blog post on how to use a Bastion host, because in their world, Bastion hosts are new because they only understand RDP. And the audacity of having a blog post on this for something that's been around for 25 years at minimum, and probably longer than that because Jonathan is not, he's not an old man.
Not yet.
Is ridiculous in all accounts.
Yes.
New digital course on Coursera, AWS Fundamentals of Security Risk.
Now fundamental training for all Capital One employees.
No! How did I know you were going to say that? I was going to say exactly the same thing. If he gets a point for this, I want a half a point each.
I'm not even including it. It was too easy. It was too easy. Too big of a softball. Not included.
I thought my Azure Bastion host one was good though. I think it dings. I don't know.
I'm a little tongue-tied, but I have a couple on my brain. Sorry about that. Announcing GA for Azure Security Center for IoT.
Because everyone wants to secure their millions of devices that are out in the field that they have no idea what they're doing. Yeah. So good. Thank you.
Amazon ECS services now support multiple load balancer target groups. Oh, nice.
Bad time.
About time on this one for sure. Like this is so frustrating. Like, I need to point 2 load balancers to it. Well, you can't do it natively. You have to set it up manually, and then it never worked properly because, of course, the ports change every time the container bounces, and then it doesn't work. So you end up writing multiple services, which now costs you more money to run to do a simple thing that should have been there 2 years ago.
EBS volume type is updated to GP2.
So I didn't realize that was not the default, but apparently it's only the default if you don't specify it at launch time in the CLI. But in the console, it's been the default for, I don't know, a year or two now.
Yeah.
So when I read this at first, I was like, I don't get this one. But then I read the thing. If you don't specify the instance type or volume type in your launch config of the CLI, it'll default now to GP2. So you're welcome.
I think when they change default settings like this, I think it's just an indication that to use the old default actually costs them more money than to use the new default.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that's the case. And, magnetic disk at this point in time is probably getting more and more expensive for them to make the default.
I'm sure.
Amazon EC2 on-demand capacity reservations shared across multiple AWS accounts.
There's nothing like sharing your reserve capacity with other people.
Yeah, other people? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. Yeah, just open it up.
I was so glad. The fact that this wasn't a thing, though, when they launched this feature was silly. Because, if you are doing DR, and are you going to really want to do it at the account level, or are you going to want to do it at the organizational payer level? And if you're doing true DR, do you want to have an account separation there? So the capacity reservation in the specific account didn't really make sense anyways, but yeah, I'm glad they did it.
I think you just scared a whole bunch of people, because people who run big workloads in one region think that they can fail that over to another region at a moment's notice. They're forgetting that everybody else in that region is also going to fail over their stuff to US East 1 or US East 2 or something else, and that if you want to guarantee capacity for your workload, you got to pay for it.
You got to pay for it
up front, whether you're using it or not.
Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I don't mention that. Yeah. That's not in the small print.
That's not in the architect test either.
It is not.
Can I just say that you were both extremely entertaining tonight? I enjoyed. I think our lightning hour was a little long tonight, but you guys made it super enjoyable. That said, I have 1 billion reasons to give Justin the win.
Okay.
Sorry.
I was on a losing streak, so I was kind of feeling like maybe we're just trying to get Jonathan caught up to me.
1 billion reasons. Although I think you could have done the voice a little better.
I probably could have.
But I forgot to ding it.
I still have a head cold. I still haven't quite shaken that head cold from Rome yet, so it's a little bit out of my comfort zone. Well, thanks, guys. It was a fantastic show, as usual, and we will see you guys next week.
Hi, see ya.
Have a great night.
And that is the Week in Cloud. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Foghorn Consulting. Subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, and tweet us your feedback at #TheCloudPod. Or join our Slack channel. Go to our website, thecloudpod.net, for sign-up instructions.